Hello, Sean Iddings here. Welcome to the MicroCap Club Member Spotlight. In these interviews, we'll showcase many of the talented members of MicroCap Club. Today, we have Sid Grover, a private investor. Sid, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now and how you got in here.
Sure. So I moved around a lot growing up, but went to high school and college in the Bay Area. And, just coming of age in Silicon Valley, I got sucked into the slipstream of technology. And so out of college, I spent some time at a venture capital firm focused on enterprise software, specifically vertical enterprise software. So it got me interested in that business model. And after that, I left to co-found and build a vertical enterprise software company of my own in the higher education space called Edfinity. And in a nutshell, what we do is we provide online homework and assessment software for STEM subjects. So think math, science, engineering, physics, economics to high schools and colleges across the US. And we generally are replacing legacy software from textbook companies like Pearson and McGraw-Hill and so on. So it's a business that we've been building for a little over half a decade now, and it's been a great ride. Around a few years ago, as the business started to outgrow me and need me less and less over time, I started to take a step back and start setting up a family office of sorts to invest my own money, to invest my family money, and that was my journey into the investing universe.
And what about microcaps? Has there been a certain point of time where you just decided, hey, this is the best place to be working our capital?
I don't think that switch ever necessarily went off. I invest in microcaps, mid caps, larger companies as well. I'm really my investment process really is top down, I would say, in that I really like to think in terms of macro theses, not necessarily macroeconomic theses, but I'm really a systems thinker, so I like to go into an industry or a vertical or a specific product category and try and understand it from the top down. Like, who are the players? What is the value chain? Who are the different stakeholders and what are their incentives? And I try to go in top down and then figure out, one, do I like that industry as a place to invest? And two, what is the best use of my capital in that industry? And sometimes that turns out to be the microcap, sometimes that turns out to be the mid cap, and sometimes it turns out to be the large cap. And so I don't necessarily go into any of this thinking I want to invest in the smallest company. I try and find the best risk reward, or what is the most mispriced, which more often than not is the smaller mid cap companies, but isn't always the case.
And we were talking about being a business operator and how that has shaped yourself as an investor. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I think that, funnily enough, I think the way in which it has affected me the most, which doesn't really sound like an advantage as much as a disadvantage, is I don't react as strongly, I think, to negative incremental information, right? Like a deal falling through or a key executive leaving a company, just because I know from personal experience that things, fall through at the last minute for any number of reasons, right? People leave companies for all kinds of idiosyncratic personal reasons. And, the fact that, a deal wasn't signed at a particular point in time or someone left, doesn't necessarily mean that the business is falling apart, right? And so I think it has made me, a little a little more resilient to processing that kind of information. I think that specifically with microcaps, spending time in venture capital land actually, gave me more. I'd say there were more things I saw there rather than operating a business that affected how I look at microcaps. So, for example, it was a well-reputed VC firm, so they had the benefit of getting to partner with a lot of repeat entrepreneurs who had already had success in whatever product or niche they were trying to build a new business in. And I saw many times a company with, a founder who looked great on paper. They had all the right expertise. They had a track record building and selling, the first generation of that product, and they didn't succeed the second time around. And so I think specifically when it comes to microcaps, I personally am not willing to underwrite an investment thesis on the basis of, the cult of the founder, right? Or the chairman or the CEO, having great pedigree, right? Or having a great track record. Like, the rest of the business really needs to make sense to me. The product needs to make sense. The go-to-market strategy needs to make sense. And I think that's the background specifically in enterprise software has made me focus a lot on go-to-market economics as well. Because when most enterprise software companies fail is they're just not able to make the economics of selling work properly, right? Like, it costs way too much for most SaaS companies to acquire a new customer versus what they're able to charge. And so when I'm looking at companies, I focus a lot on sales economics. Yeah.
So you're talking about being more of a top-down thinker in any kind of industry. Are there any other details of your investing strategy that you could expound upon, whether it be, so you said you're more into the risk reward wherever that might take you, but are you more of the short-term, long-term, GARP value, anything like that?
Yeah, generally, I'm a longer-term investor. I've realized from experience I'm very bad at predicting week to week or month to month gyrations in the market. So I do think in terms of, only buying shares of businesses that I'd be happy to own the entire business of, right, at a given price. Not to get too cute, but I do believe in the maxim that, all good investing is value investing, right? And so I don't identify with any particular style, but maybe one thing I'll say in terms of a framework or a mental model that, looking back, has worked out well for me is, what Howard Marks calls good company, bad balance sheet. So there's an interview in which Howard Marks basically explains that a lot of Oaktree's most successful investments have been the ones in which you had a fundamentally good business, they had a good product, or they had good assets, but for some idiosyncratic reason or another, the balance sheet was in bad shape. Maybe there had been a bad downturn in the industry. Maybe there had been some kind of left tail black swan event that had put the company under pressure, etc. But you had a fundamentally good business, but the balance sheet just looked ugly. That has been something that kind of setup has been something that I've found has worked well for me, particularly when I compare it with some kind of top-down view that things are going to improve in that particular sector or industry, because it's kind of it's a different kind of margin of safety, right? If things don't work out for the company, maybe there are industry-specific forces that will still bail you out, right? And if things do work out for the company, you get additional juice in your investment, right? And it's a lot easier to fix a balance sheet over time through deleveraging, through getting a good CFO in who figures out, oh, I can do a sale lease back of this asset, I can divest that, we can get this off our books, we can restructure that contract. It's a lot easier to do those sorts of changes than to, try and create pricing power for a business that doesn't really have pricing power to begin with, right? Or change the negotiating dynamics with a much more concentrated, much more market powerful counterparty, right? So, I try and find fundamentally good businesses and, good companies that are mispriced by the market for some reason, and bad balance sheets is a common reason why that happens.
And are there any investing ideas or themes or really anything that you've been thinking about lately, or any mental model?
Yeah, sure. So one area that I haven't gotten involved with yet, but I'm spending a lot of time studying, is home building suppliers and the home building complex. It kind of rhymes with what I was just describing in that if you look at the data, we have a shortage of single-family homes in the U.S. And there's a demographic shift that as millennials move into the homeowning stages of their lives, we have a shortage of homes. Now, at the same time, interest rates have increased substantially, over the last few years, which is putting short-term pressure on this industry. But I do believe over the medium to long term, there is a structural undersupply and a deficit, which will eventually need to correct at some point. And so what I'm looking for right now are, the best businesses in this sector that will be able to survive and, hopefully thrive during this immediate term period of stress. Because the best businesses are able to take advantage of bad market conditions. Right. They're able to roll up competitors. They're able to consolidate their position, create barriers to entry around them. And so I'm trying to find the companies that are doing that. I haven't quite honed in on the specific ones yet, but ones that will do that, so that if this longer term thesis of mine around a rebound and single family homes plays out, then they'll really sink.
Yeah, since I operate a business in the real estate industry and the residential housing industry, you see a huge dynamic or lack of inventory within it, and we have the demographics that are going to need the single family housing. But like you said, it's the great business is able to be positioned when the tide turns. They're the blue crab that's able to scavenge all of the dead pieces that are left behind and really take advantage of the opportunities.
Yeah, I think in general, any kind of business where there is some amount of cyclicality to it, it doesn't necessarily need to be as volatile as a commodity sector like oil and gas or coal, but any business or industry in which things aren't just straight up and to the right, you're likely to get a lot more mispricing in those companies, because Wall Street and analysts and the sell side, they love things you can project linearly, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I try and, this didn't really happen by design. I just found myself more attracted to businesses where there's some amount of cyclicality, because there's a little more mispricing there, kind of like with microcaps. And then when you overlay cyclical microcaps, then that's when you start to find companies where it really is a head scratcher how they can be trading in a certain way at certain points in time.
Good. Really enjoyed those added details. Sid, you've been a member of MicroCap Club for a little while. Can you just tell us a little bit about your experience within the club and with the people within the club?
Yeah, sure. So it's been a great learning experience for me. Like I said, I'm a lot more of a top-down investor, and one of the ways that I feel like I've grown as an investor is, reading some of the fantastic bottoms-up analysis that folks in the club do, tracking down random bits of information from a larger publicly traded customer or partner, and then, doing a read through to, what's going on with that microcap, right? So there's, it's really helped me grow and, setting a higher bar for me in terms of doing bottoms up company analysis. And also, maybe more importantly, I've made a lot of very close personal friends through the community of folks like Michael Liu and Tom Backrack and Ian have all, not just become work peers, but that they're close personal friends as well now, who I travel and vacation with and so on. So maybe that's been the most important way in which it's changed my life.
Oh, thank you for letting us know about that, and thank you really for taking the time to chat with me today, Sid. And are there any other places other than MicroCap Club? I'll share your display name or handle with the club down below, but are there any other places online that people can find your writings or thoughts at?
Sure. So yeah, I'm on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is Canterbury_Sid. So yeah, I sometimes discuss ideas and thoughts there.
Great. Thanks again for talking with us today, Sid. You have a good one.
You too. Thanks, Sean.